can taste your words. I can taste your.
Welcome to the Easy Answer Podcast. I'm Brandy, plant-based chef.
And I'm Vonanise, plant-based adjacent.
On this podcast, we explore thought-provoking conversations around food
and simple ways to stay healthy in this crazy world.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Brandy. How you doing, girl?
I'm doing good. How was your day?
Wonderful, wonderful.
All right, guys. So listen, we're gonna switch our format up a little bit. So usually on the Easy Answer podcast, Vaughn and I kiki, as they say in the streets, for a little bit. Then we bring on the guest, right? But today's guest is actually a new segment that we created that we haven't officially named, but as we evolve, we'll find a name for it. But what we're going to do is we're going to watch a movie that was thought-provoking around food.
A documentary.
Right? That helps us. And so the one that we're talking about today is the series on Netflix called Explained. Now, Vaughn watched an episode of Explained and was like, Brandy, have you seen, well, she really texted me, so there was no saying, but in her text message, she said, Brandy, have you seen this thing? Now, Explained is a series on Netflix, and they've covered a few different things. They've done series on cults. They've done series on cannabis. And the conversation that we're going to talk about today is around the episode that they did around something that they're calling clean meat.
It was like America's obsession with meat consumption.
Yeah. And it was called The Future of Meat was the official title of this episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so to tell you about the future of meat, they started with the history of meat, the Neanderthals, how our body changed as we, grew out of that, and our brains got bigger and our stomachs got smaller, our intestines changed, because they said the biggest innovation was when we figured out how to domesticate meat. And that apparently changed the world for us. Domesticate animals.
Yeah. Yep. And what's I like that you bring this up, and this is just a Brandy rant because I like to throw those in from time to time. There's this weird narrative that we have, right? That cavemen were just out there in the streets just eating meat. You understand? They was meat eating people. They were out there. But let's be realistic, right? I'm a caveman. I don't have I don't know what I'm going to run into, right? I'm walking down the street with my rock and my stick and my family. And yes, my rock and my stick and my family. And I'm more likely to run into a plant than I am like a woolly mammoth. You understand? Like, I'm not killing woolly mammoths every night and having meat. So like there's this narrative that the original caveman was out here eating all of this meat, but realistically, that wasn't even possible.
That's not what they said. I felt like
they didn't say this. No, they covered it well. I'm just saying. I love how they debunked this concept that
that people couldn't even get meat like that. Correct. So you ate meat as you could get it, exactly. And then because people wanted meat more, because they craved meat more, that's when they figured out how to domesticate animals. Mm-hmm. That's what they said.
Yeah. No, yeah. You're absolutely this docu-series did a great job kind of debunking the whole Neanderthal man eating meat every day. Which I love the Flintstones, but it's not realistic. Yeah. So
and they really talked about the the idea of meat branding. Like they started on that path where they said they told you where different things came from. Like the cow was the bison, and the wild boar became pork, became pig, which we call pork. And then they said if people had to see how meat was, what they had to do it to get it, a lot of people wouldn't be meat eaters. Like they removed us from it because they don't say I'm eating cow, they say I'm eating beef. I'm not eating pig, I'm eating pork, Mm-hmm. We do call chicken,
right?
But even when you think about it like that, you know, it just changes the way that we consume meat because we're so removed from it. I mean, I grew up in New York City, as you all know if you've watched any episode of the show. And I think I saw a chicken get killed like as an adult once, and I was like, I was done with chicken for like a good 3 months. I was like, oh, I'm good on that.
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that because the more disconnected we come, what we are from where our food comes from, the less, I guess, mindful we are about how we consume it. Like because how they stop connecting animals to food, they introduce things like the chicken nugget, right? Things like the chicken nugget, things like ground beef, which allowed the industrialization of, or commercialization rather, of like meat and food to help them maximize the scraps, right? Because think about things like that. That's
the scraps,
yes.
Right? It was always the scraps.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. So it's like, you know, hence the hot dog. I mean, a delicious invention. No one's going to say hot dogs don't taste amazing grilled on a bun with onion. I love hot dogs. I don't eat them, but I love the flavor profile like of a hot dog. It's something about it that I really, really dig. Oh, speaking, so maybe we should go into our clip.
Definitely. So let's go into the clip now. Brittany's talking about flavor profile. Perfect transition.
Yeah.
This is the Impossible Burger, and this is the Beyond Burger. They're both plant-based patties trying to compete with meat.
The key is very simple. You have to create meat that is uncompromisingly delicious, delivers as much or better protein and iron and the other nutrients that people like from meat, performs in the kitchen, and is accessible and affordable. And if you do those things, it's game over. The most important scientific question in the world right now: what makes meat delicious?
It's a lot harder than you might think.
There's not like one beefy flavor, aroma molecule.
To figure out the recipe, food scientists heated up pieces of meat and collected air samples right above them as they cooked.
On the other end of that tube is a little funnel with someone's nose stuck in it. And that person, for 45 minutes, is sitting there sniffing, you know, like...
What they're smelling are the components of what makes meat meaty.
The molecules that come out, it'll smell like maple syrup, burnt rubber, freshly struck match, dirty diaper, mint, lilacs, sweat, sulfur.
But one of the major things that gives red meat its distinct flavor? It's that special compound found in animals, heme iron. And in 2015, Impossible Foods patented a way to synthesize heme iron in a lab. The result is a new generation of plant-based alternatives that taste, feel, and bleed like meat.
All right. So guys, I don't know if you've watched this show before. Like I always talk about the power of
Definitely
spices and building flavor. And I love that clip kind of shows how when you're building a flavor into a food, like it's not one thing, and some of the things aren't even necessarily food related, right? So they talked about when you're trying to create meat, you got burnt rubber, match striking, dirty diapers, lilacs, like all these random things. The maple syrup made perfect sense, right? But so it's just really interesting and one way to see how people are trying to solve this problem of man's desire for meat in this plant-based space and get it as close to possible to the real thing as you possibly can. I just want to offer that you can do something similar without needing to like hire a team of scientists. And
I don't know, Brenzy, maybe your brain is just so much more advanced than the rest of us. Brenzy is like a modern genius sitting in front of us, you know. Like, and these people, they need to talk to you.
I don't know about that. All I know is that when you eat food, you can taste all that stuff. So then you find it and then you build it back in. That's all. That's the only thing I'm offering. And like, I personally don't necessarily need a meat alternative, right? So I do like the flavors in meat. So, like, say for instance, I want a piece of bacon. I'm just gonna build the bacon. I'm just gonna build that flavor profile into something. I'm gonna find some maple, some liquid smoke, some garlic, some ginger, some acid. So all that stuff that you taste when you bite into bacon, some pepper. I'm gonna put it on something and be like, oh wow, I got it. I don't think I'm gonna hire a team of scientists and try to find heme iron and patent to patent. So
That's
so
like everyone's not as advanced as you. I've tasted the Impossible meat when I ordered a meal kit. It was in it for beef, and I thought it was really good. I really did like it. It did not pretend like it was a whole bunch of like it was very healthy. I knew going in that it wasn't healthy because Brandy told me. Uh, but I think that it helped me to just realize that, you know, it was good. I didn't feel like, but I used to eat soy burgers, and I felt like the texture of it wasn't. It was ground beef, ground beef. The texture of it wasn't exactly the same, but it tastes delicious. And I even finished the next day. I ate the rest of it. So I think that I think that definitely is better than the Morningstar veggie patties I used to eat. You know, like it doesn't taste like that. It tastes closer to meat. And then remember they did the whole thing about tofurkey and about how people used to do it. It was just so funny.
well, it was also like look. My big thing is you have to present it in a way where it's interesting. If I go into a store and I see this thing that looks like a turkey, and the person selling me it, like this tastes like a turkey, I kind of think it probably is maybe going to taste like a turkey. I already go
The
in.
girl was just like, it probably like he said it, his lips perched. Like
It's like, thanks for not selling this well because nobody has any trust. And like they were also talking about how anytime people think of plant-based meat, vegan meat, faux meat, they just immediately think it's gonna suck. You understand? Like that's literally, what you're up against. And so there's this whole mission to make this stuff as close to the real thing as possible. And I agree. I think Beyond Meat and Impossible Burgers have done a great job. I have had both of them. And texturally, they're pretty solid. Flavor-wise, they're pretty solid. My body can't process them because they're just too much for me to take. So I didn't have a good physical reaction to them. But the mouthfeel, the flavor profile, the texture, I hands down agree with you. But it makes sense because it was created for meat eaters. So when you create something for meat eaters, the mission is to make sure that they enjoy it, that they actually want to eat it.
yeah, I guess the idea is to convert the people who haven't converted, not the people who have, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing that I thought was a really smart idea. Like in terms of business, like that's intelligence,
Yeah, because what's interesting is that you end up it's a multi-market approach, right? You get the people who are already just like vegan for the animals and have already committed. And then you get the people who are just like curious and like I want to try to be more healthy, but I just can't find an alternative. So
But they never said that it was healthier.
right, but no, but they never said it was
Their
healthy.
minds
Right.
did it.
That's the marketing that if you don't eat, if it's
Yeah.
vegan or if it's meat free or dairy free, that it's healthy, which is definitely, we know for sure that that's not true. But if you do a meatless Monday doesn't mean I'm doing it for wellness. It could mean I'm doing it for the environment. It could mean I'm doing it for whatever.
It's a burger. It's not healthy, and that's true.
Yeah,
It's a burger.
yeah. So it's interesting. Another thing that this episode talked about is, like we said, the title of it was The Future of Meat. So the things that they're doing to ensure that we have meat in the future. And I want to introduce our next clip and then, just kind of have a conversation about this.
We'll talk about it. Let's
Making animal meat without killing the animal. You're looking at chicken cells. In a few weeks, they'll be breaded and fried into a nugget like this one. But these cells aren't growing inside of a chicken.
Culture meat isn't any different than conventional meat that we've been eating for tens of thousands of years. It's made from an animal. The only difference is you don't need to kill the animal. The recipe is a pretty easy one. It's meat.
Actually, the recipe's pretty hard. There are 4 main components involved. The first is a cell culture, a tiny tissue sample taken from the body of a live animal. Then there's the scaffold. That's the surface that the replicating muscle cells stick to. To grow, the cells also need a growth medium, the soup that provides proteins, vitamins, sugars, and hormones to feed the cells as they grow and divide. And finally, a bioreactor, the temperature-controlled environment that intakes fresh nutrients and outputs waste. You can think of it like an artificial body for the meat to grow in. In about 9 weeks, this goes from a tiny group of cells to an edible chunk of meat. Early research suggests that this process could use about half the energy of beef production, a tiny fraction of the land and water, and greatly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But the key question, does it taste any good? In 2013, the world got to watch the first lab-grown meat taste test, televised on BBC. They said it kind of tasted like meat.
There's quite some intense taste. It's close to meat. It's not that juicy.
And another big difference is that hamburger cost $330,000 to make. Engineered by this guy, Dutch pharmacologist Mark Post. Only 6 years later, Post's meat startup, Mosa Meat, says it cut production costs by 99.997% to just $10 a burger. Right now, dozens of cell-based meat startups are racing to be the first ones to go to market, from the Netherlands to Israel to Singapore, but none of them have perfected the recipe. Yet. The first problem is sourcing the growth medium. Right now, the liquid used is fetal bovine serum, and that's a nicer way of saying blood taken from the heart of an unborn cow, immediately killing it. Cell-based meat companies are working toward a plant-based replacement, but experts aren't sure when or even if that could happen. Another problem is structure.
So ground meat is that hamburger, that ground chicken nugget, and the structure meat is that steak and that nice fatty piece of bluefin tuna. The ground stuff is a lot easier. The structure stuff is a lot harder.
That requires delivering nutrients to cells at the center of the meat, like blood vessels do in an animal's body. Researchers are experimenting with different techniques to do that, like using the vein structure of a spinach leaf. But experts think we're at least a decade away from pulling off something that resembles a big, juicy steak.
I don't know about you.
Sorry.
She got a lot of work for some meat, y'all. I don't know about you, but
I mean, they said in other words, it's the blood from a baby
cow. I mean, it's not like bovine juice sounds any better. Like bovine juice sounds better than baby cow heart blood. I don't know.
But that whole thing, I mean, I was just like, and I saw it and I was eating like, okay, so I was eating an egg, mac and cheese, and spinach scramble. And I was like, oh my God, this is disgusting. Did any of this get in my mouth? I was like, it just turned me off. I was like, and they're doing this, you know?
Yeah, and the ironic funny thing, they've been doing this since I want to say like the 2010, 2013. I remember reading, I'm a geek, if you guys haven't noticed, when it comes to like food and investigation. And so a lot of times I'll read a larger book, and at the end of the large books, they usually have all of the references. And so I end up literally going through all of those references to kind of see.
God, you really are a geek.
I like to consider the source. Like a person put their book together or their documentary together, and they pick the point of view, right? You have to figure out. But I like to see like how they got to their point of view. So I tend to like go into these rabbit holes. And so I ended up falling into this story about it was pretty much clone. It was the beginning of clone meat, and there was a lot of conversation about clone meat. Would you eat clone meat? Would you not eat clone meat? And a lot of people were against the idea of eating clone meat, right?
They said that in a documentary too.
Yeah.
People were like, no way. And they would, like, went to Europe. They were like, you could pay me $1,000 and I'm still not eating it. You know?
Right, exactly.
So test tube meat.
Exactly. No one likes this idea. So early on, they caught wind that calling it clone meat wasn't necessarily going to be a selling point. And on top of the fact that they weren't going to call it clone meat, there was also a group of people who were lobbying to get it labeled as such. So even now, they still haven't gotten it. Still, you don't have to label it clone meat, right? You don't have to label it. So it could just be integrated into the meat.
Unacceptable.
Like,
unacceptable.
So that was crazy. So then they changed the name a little bit. I think it was called like cell-based meat, which is like the scientific name, which also
and in the documentary they went through the branding exercise.
Yeah.
Like, this is when capitalism goes too far.
Yes, but what's crazy is that they landed on something called clean meat. Now,
Please, you just took the blood out the heart of a baby cow. Like, really? Please.
It's called clean meat. And they also, what's interesting now, like maybe 2 years ago, I read something or saw some documentary or something where they were asking people, particularly people who classify themselves as vegan, would they be open to eat meat that came from the cells of an animal? And the majority of them said yes, because no animal died. And so that to me is nuts. In my opinion, I think that the fact that it's just like we're selling the fact that no animal had to die, but obviously they did in order to get that first culture. Somebody had to die to get that first culture, people.
Yes. And then, so you have to think of it like, they were like, and then it has to go in here, and it has to be like, there has to be a host. And then we're trying to put the host on a deck on lettuce leaf
so that they could.
Remember they talk about test tube babies? So, you know, you put the sperm in the egg, you make an embryo, you put it back in the mama, and now you have a baby, IVF, right? Mm-hmm. But there's no host animal to put that back into. Mm-hmm. So now they're trying to mess up the plants and put it on plants. So this is like too much now.
They're trying to leverage. They're trying to bring it all together. So then guess what? They can call it plant-based. You understand? It's all part of the big plan, okay? That's what they try to do. They try to get us, but they don't know that we see them. We see them. We see y'all.
I just didn't understand. And I just had to, like, I was like, this is a lot. And I felt like, and they said like, and they were talking about the toll that meat takes on our lives as Americans, and how meat consumption is going down in America, but in other parts of the world, as the middle class rises, meat consumption's going up. And so I just think like, I'm just like, I personally am like, I don't need meat with every meal. I've been there a long time ago. And I definitely don't eat meat every day in order to feel like full at the end of the night. Definitely not. I've gotten there, you know? I don't even eat fish with every meal, you know, since my tooth situation. I just had a piece of fish. It was the first time I had a piece of fish since Wednesday, okay? Just because and then I saw this, and it really just, I'm over the edge. Yeah. You know? I was just like,
look out, like you know, when we were prepping this, like I kept my whole theme was like, all of this for some meat. Like all this for some meat. Like when you think about it, for some meat? Really? Like meat has no flavor until you put flavor on it. So all you're doing is looking for texture. You're looking for some texture.
People attach it to, they attach food to a memory to something. So you're like, oh, what I'm gonna eat for Thanksgiving,
yes,
for the barbecue, what I'm, you understand? Like people just, they create scenarios that don't even have to exist.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, put some barbecue sauce on some broccoli, y'all. I mean, because
you cannot, and it's going to taste like,
it's going to taste like barbecue sauce and broccoli, but at least you got your barbecue sauce flavor profile, okay? Because that's all you was after. barbecue chicken meat or barbecue sauce and broccoli, I will be grilling up some good old broccoli. I will be blowing this barbecue sauce on it and get that nice little sticky thing look that we after we get our chicken.
And you know I love broccoli, but I don't know about yellow theory. But I do think that's crazy.
Barbecue broccoli is delicious.
Barbecue sauce on broccoli?
Yeah, on the grill. I'm not saying just like how people put cheese on broccoli. I'm talking about like take your broccoli, grill it up nicely, and then like barbecue, like put the sauce.
The chef always kicks it. Brandy always has to tell you how to make something. Like she is like consistent with that. What we're saying is you have to decide what's important to you. And I just think that, you know, in America, the way that consumerism fits in, and then capitalism, you understand? And how they're about to turn this Impossible Meat thing, because they had to tell you that all the rich people, they invested in the IPO. And I looked online today, and Impossible Meat was double the price from a year ago. Mm-hmm. So if you invested last year, it was only $66. Yesterday, it was $122 a share. Mm-hmm. So kudos to you if you bought some Impossible Meat. But they have to tell you, Richard Branson, Bill Gates, Jay-Z. So they're telling you, the cool people, Beyonce's even vegan. They're vegan now. So what do we do in America? We're followers, all right? We're like, let me be vegan. So then they're like, now people are starting to, you know, come up with this idea of like clean meat, but that's not vegan, okay?
No, see, yeah, but you know what? It actually is. That's what's funny about it. It's not plant-based, and that's the difference that we really have to be distinction, like the distinction that really has to be made, because technically that is vegan, but it's not plant-based, and they're trying to make those two words interchangeable. And I'm interested to see how that goes over the next few years, and what does that mean? What does it really mean? Because like just as we saw in this last clip, they're really trying to push clean meat as a plant-based alternative. I mean,
and then they said, remember, they were like, you know, they said, what is disgusting in some cultures? Like, you guys have to see it. What is disgusting in some cultures is different than others. And it shows you the different cultures. Oh, this culture eats alligator. This culture eats snails. And I was just like, are these people serious?
Right, because in America, we're going to eat clean meat. I'm sorry, guys.
You could just eat more vegetables and fruits.
Just have less. Yes, thank you. Listen, I'm not saying don't eat your meat. What I'm saying is that, guys, do we need to go to these lengths? Or ask yourself, do you want the world?
It's not that serious for me.
These lengths. What's the meat? I mean, come on, guys.
It's not that serious for me. And you know me, I was like plant-based adjacent. I'm still adjacent. I just had some fish today. But it's a lot going on, you know?
It is, guys.
And they even discuss the idea of disgusting. And that's cultural.
That is. That's so true. So true. All right, guys. So listen, this was our first but not last segment of we haven't named it yet, but it's gonna be at some time we will jump in and we will watch something and have some commentary about it. We will encourage you to watch it and make your own decisions. All we're here to do is to drop off information and help you to have thought-provoking conversations around food, right? And find the best solutions for your health. So guys, this is Brandy and Vonanise signing off for The Easy Answer. And this series is called Explained, and you can find it on Netflix. So
subscribe and drop a comment. Let us know what you thought of it.
Yes, indeed. Until next time.